I'm doing good. Sorry for the delay. Actually, let me go grab a extender for my because I had to go into a room that isn't. Let me go get my Wi-Fi extender. I'll be right back.
Do what you need to do.
Okay, let me know if, I guess maybe we could talk for a little bit before we get started, just make sure I don't freeze through this.
No, that absolutely, we're on the same page here. You are my guinea pig, so I'm gonna let you know that from the front. I've done many an interview in my life. The last time I interviewed anyone political was Jesse Jackson in 1988. So
Wow.
that just goes to show you how long ago it was. So
yeah.
But I figured, okay, we both live here. We both want something. You want our vote, and I want you to do the best you can for our city. So
thank you.
So thank you for being the guinea pig. But yeah, what I'm thinking, and for all the candidates is, yeah, that get to know you first, then dive in to the questions. I promise I will try to make it as apolitical as possible, so that way I'm not alienating out any particular side of the house.
Okay.
And so I apologize up front to those watching this. I'm trying to be apolitical. So, oh boy. Well, you know what? Let's start with the real easy one. How you been?
I've been great. It's been a little hectic, you know, trying to do a job, the city council job, 30 to 40 hours a week doing that, and then campaigning another 30 to 40 hours. But it's silly season right now, you know. It's everybody's out doing what they can to get the votes, and that's what I'm doing as well.
And nothing wrong with that. And I'll be honest with you, when I started doing the research, you were the easiest person I could get a hold of. You had all your information out there. So off the top of my head, you're tech savvy for all of those youngsters that come after, well, I'm a boomer. So all those other alphabet kids.
I'm at the bottom of the boomers too.
You're at the bottom?
I'm got me center. In there.
I'm dead center. So you're on the cusp of boomer and Gen X. But the fact that you are, as far as I know, you're on Nextdoor a lot. I see comments from you. I honestly, and I'll be fair, and maybe that's why I'm, because people ask me, well, why are you doing it? And it's, I live here for one, but for another, I'm probably like a lot of people who live here. I don't know much about any of the candidates. So the questions I'm going to ask are basically, okay, I really don't know you. So, and why did I go down that rabbit hole? There was a reason I went down that rabbit hole. Maybe I'll dig my way back out. So, but yes, you're on the local town square, so to speak. And again, I haven't seen others, doesn't mean they're not out there. So,
yeah, it's important that we as leaders in the community take an active role in informing the community, making sure that they're able to make the best decisions to help guide us make the best decisions. And not only do I try to post as much as I can on social media, last year in January, I started having coffees with Karen. And, I get between maybe 5 to 6, all the way up to 16 people that have come to these coffees with Karen. It's a very informal thing. I talk about anything that people ask me. I mean, I try to address all the questions. If there's concerns of theirs that need to have staff get involved, I take that information down and contact staff and try to resolve the issues. I feel that as a leader, if I don't know what the residents want, how can I vote for them? And that's why I try to be as active in the community as I can. I try to go to as many events as I can. I answer emails and telephone calls, and I will meet one-on-one with people who want to meet. It doesn't have to be the coffee with Karen. And I think that's what they want in a leader, is somebody who's approachable, that will listen to their concerns and move them forward as things come onto our agendas that we need to vote for.
No, and this right here is a prime example of what you're saying. You do practice what you preach, because we've never met before, face to face, and we've talked a couple of times on Nextdoor. Now, some of the questions. Now let's stick with the get to know Karen, the virtual coffee with Karen, so to speak. You've been doing this for, it may wind up into the actual interview. So, but you have been in politics here a while, right?
Well, not really politics. I was elected to the council in 2016. Prior to that, I moved here in 1995.
Okay.
And I really wasn't involved in my community. I came from the South Bay. I grew up in Santa Clara. And while I would help out in my kids' classes, because I had very young ones, I could only do really things at home for the teachers and not go into the classrooms. When we moved to Brentwood, it was shortly after we moved in, we found out that the lot across the street, it's a 1.1 acre lot, was supposed to be a park, and that they were getting ready to subdivide the park, or subdivide that land for homes.
Right.
And then another half-acre parcel a couple streets over that was also supposed to be a park. And our developer said that they had to do it because the city would no longer maintain a park under 5 acres. It was just cost prohibitive, so they would only maintain parks over 5 acres. So we went down to the city, myself and several of the neighbors, and I asked, what would it cost for us to assess ourselves for that maintenance? And so the consultant went through it all, figured it out, and it turned out to be $72 a year, $6 a month. So we went and knocked on doors for 242 homes in our development, and we asked them, would you be willing to pay $6 a month to have these 2 lots turned into parks rather than into homes? 75% of the people said, yes, here, we'll sign away. So we took it back to the city. The city put it out for the special ballot assessment, and it returned positively. And so we got our 2 mini parks there. And I actually drove by them yesterday, going to put signs out, and they've changed the playground equipment because, you know, that was back in 1996. So it all has new playground equipment. The trees are nice and big and full. The playgrounds look better than ever. And I took great pride in that because I helped to push that thing through. Then because of that, I got appointed to the Brentwood Advisory Neighborhood Committee. The city was growing so fast that the city manager had created this as a group of the people that neighbors already went to get things resolved. Mm-hmm. My neighbors were calling me about everything. The color of somebody's paint on their house, they'd call me and say, how can you let that happen? So anyway, I got appointed to this. We were liaisons to the city council, and the reasons why we were was so that there was a problem in our neighborhood. The neighbors would come to us with it. We direct them to the correct department, or we would help resolve that so that it didn't become problematic and them all rushed down to City Hall and in the council chambers, and we were very effective. We started the Home of the Month back then. We started the tree lighting. And so that was what we did. We were the fastest growing city in the state of California, and they needed us as liaisons to help resolve problems. As I was walking around the neighborhood trying to pick a Home of the Month, I noticed that the front porches were falling apart. I noticed that I heard from neighbors that they had mold in their windowsills, that they thought they were having mold coming up underneath their linoleum, foundations were cracking, all kinds of things. And so I went to City Hall and a city council meeting, and our developer was building a arbor in the middle of City Park. A Seroptimus Square is what it was called, but they built it for the Seroptimus. And they talked about how well it was built. And so I got up and I spoke and I says, well, I'm great that this thing will withstand a hurricane or a tornado. I said, but the homes that they built in our town are falling apart. And I went on to explain what all those things were. And I says, and you're letting them build another development right now. I said, and in 10 years, if you don't make them rectify the problems in these homes, in 10 years, these homes will fall apart and people, it'll become low income neighborhoods because nobody will want to purchase in these neighborhoods. And I said, and you have them developing all through our town. So they did stop issuing occupancy permits for these homes. And then they made them resolve the problems. $7 million in repairs on 242 homes. And they had to do it before they can get an occupancy permit for any of their new homes. So that got me pushed in, and then a park commission got started. And I was appointed to the park commission for my efforts in getting those 2 new parks in our community. And we created the Park and Rec master plan. We wanted to make sure that there was plenty of open space all over. We wanted to make sure that there was trails that connected for safe routes to schools and parks, lots of parks. Right now, when all of them build, I think we'll be at 101 parks in less than 15 square miles.
Okay.
And so all of that is from the planning that we did back in the early 2000s, the Park and Rec Commission. And thanks to the following park commissions, because they went on to create great parks through our city. I became part of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority Citizens Advisory Committee. And within months after I started, I got appointed as chairman. And we oversaw the growth management compliance checklist. That's something that the cities have to fill out and present to get their percentage from, back then it was the Measure C, a half-cent sales tax, and then it's a return to source for the city or cities. And so we had to review these and determine whether or not they met the criteria, or whether or not they had to go back and get things done, whether or not they had to come to us every year versus every 2 years. And so that was another thing that I got onto. And I went from there to being the president of the Liberty Union High School District Educational Foundation for 7 years. And also the John Marsh Historic Trust. I've been on that. I was on it for 2 years, got off, and I've been back on it for 3 years. I'm sure I'm forgetting something in this mix. But it got to the point, and people ask me, and I'm a journalist by nature. People ask me, why aren't you running for council? You're doing all these things. And I said, well, as a journalist, I have the opportunity to reach more people through my written word, and to help resolve things that way. And that was important to me. And so I was a journalist for 14 years, 6 years with the Brentwood Press, back when it was 3 sections and 124 pages. That's a lot bigger than it is currently, like 3 times the size it is currently. And then worked as a correspondent for the East Bay Times for another 8 years. but I looked at our city and we were at 75% build out at that time. And if we didn't start bringing economic development to our city, we would not be able to sustain the quality of life that we currently have in Brentwood. People moved here because we had great parks. The schools are out of our jurisdiction, but we have great schools here. Mm-hmm. We have some of the top rated roads in our city. We're a safe city. People came here for all that, the small town feel. And I wanted to make sure that we continued with that small town feel. That's why I ran for council. I wanted to make sure that we brought economic development in so we could be fiscally sustainable. We improved public safety and smart growth. Mm-hmm. We continue to stay with our general plan. And somebody asked me this morning, well, how many houses have you approved since you got on the council? And it's not that I approved any houses because the city council only sees applications for development if it is a general plan amendment or a rezone. And since taking office, I can think of two developments where we did a general plan amendment and rezone. One of them, there was very high density residential, 300, I think, to 450 units that we reduced to 160 units. And another development where it was about 300 units that we reduced down to 72 72 duets. And other than that, we haven't done any general plan amendments that I've been on that we've approved, only in the reduction of it. And so that, again, smart growth, making sure that we don't lose our commercial to residential, and making sure that we stay with our general plan. It took 2 years to develop that general plan, lots of community feedback. And so it's important that we follow the guidelines that the community set for us as leaders.
Okay. Wow, you did an awful lot during that time. There was one thing that's been sticking in the back of my mind as you were speaking, and this goes back to the holding off on new residential while the other older existing places were falling apart. Okay, so that was 1995. This is 2020. 25 years later, these may not be the same homes that you took care of and resolved, but we do have homes that are in that sort of, I won't say dilapidated, but in dire need of fixing up. And yet we are building more homes. So what stops us as a city to do a throwback to 1995 and take care of the existing homes before we start building new ones?
You know, I would have to see the specifics on that home. Was it because, are these new homes that are falling apart like ours were? You know, within 2 years after moving in, all of these problems were happening? Or is this a result of 20, 25 years worth of wear and tear on a house that hasn't necessarily been kept up? So you've got to look at the difference between the two of them. We also, I know that there are grants that are out there that can help these older neighborhoods. It's a matter of having residents letting us know, what is it that needs to take place? And that way we can go in and apply for those grants to help those neighborhoods. But if we're not hearing from the community, it's difficult to, you can't apply for a grant without having an area to actually apply the grant to. So it's kind of a catch-22 in there, but I, as I said, I'm open. I want to hear from people, whether it's good or bad. I want to hear from people so that I can help resolve those issues.
Okay, fair enough. Now, would it not be in the interest of new developers, all right, if the city put a moratorium and said, we are not building anything new until we address these homes. As you said, you're not hearing from anyone or any neighborhood. But if a developer is now stuck and can't do anything until the neighborhood is addressed, I would think that those developers would take it upon themselves to reach out to our citizens. And they would have that incentive. It's not that my home was built 17 years ago. And I'm still considered New Brentwood. Off of here, Stonebrook Estates. Shh, don't follow me. But and I know that the homes that were built after 2003 seem by and large to be well-built homes. But those aren't the homes I'm speaking of. I'm speaking of the homes that you dealt with in 95 and the homes that may have been in the 90s, late 80s, that maybe didn't have a problem in 1995, but have problems now. There are grants, that's great. Usually when someone says, and I'm going to be flippant, there's free money. Okay, well, where is it? It's not that people don't want grants. It's, well, where is it? How do I get to it? Most people will actually do that. And when you talked about the smart growth and you talked about the plan, this is going to be a two-part question, and I honestly don't know. Everyone says the plan. Now, usually plans require goals. I've been told a plan without a goal is a wish. And so, okay, we have this plan, but we have a plan that seems to keep getting amended. Now, as a project manager, one of the many hats I wore over life, that is called scope creep, where amendment after amendment after amendment changes the scope of the plan to the point where there's no longer a plan. The plan of 2014 does not look like the plan of 2020. So why is it that there needs to be a change in the plan if everyone in 2014 agreed to it? Well, why are we changing it? Why aren't we at least sticking to the plan to see if the plan works?
Yeah. No, and I understand what you're saying. And as I mentioned, the couple general plan amendments where we actually reduced the amount of housing units. And then the only other general plan amendment really that I can think of right now is, and rezone was for our priority area 1. But in the general plan, it was called to have a specific plan created for economic development. With residential, in addition to that. But the residential component of it was included in the total gross population or total build out numbers. And by the time we were done with the specific plan for PA1, it's 430 acres in Northwest Brentwood. It's between Lone Tree and Sand Creek. So it's south of Lone Tree, north of Sand Creek, west of Hindorn Ranch, and east of Shady Willow. You're driving down the Highway 4 towards Home Depot. It's that area between the streets of Brentwood and Home Depot. So it's all that area.
On the left-hand side or on the right?
Both sides. Both sides.
Both sides. Okay.
Both sides. So that's economic development. It's called Employment Center Light Industrial. We're currently doing the master plan, which should be done in about 6 months. And we anticipate being able to market it after an environmental impact report within a year. And it's anticipated to bring in 8,600 high quality, high wage jobs. So we did reduce the amount of residential in there by, I want to say about 60. I know it's a reduction. I just don't know the exact number, but I think it's around 60 units that we ended up reducing it. I personally, when we drew out maps right in the beginning, there was 3 groups, and each group decided on how they thought that area should be developed. And my group had an intensive economic development area with very little residential. Um, we didn't get our way. So the other two maps had substantial increase in residential, which I was very surprised with, because these were community members that were helping develop these maps. And to increase the population and the amount of units being built just went against everything that I had heard from residents, is that they didn't want more housing. We are currently in this master plan, re-looking at it, and will most likely reduce even more of that residential. One of the reasons why it was at the amount it was because BART would not come into Brentwood if there wasn't 2,000 units within a half a mile walking distance from the BART station. And I went to the BART board and I spoke to them and I talked to them about, this will be all employment center. I mean, you will get your ridership coming in there because people are going to work. They're coming in from San Francisco to work in Brentwood, and having that reverse commute or jumping on BART to do that. Will BART ever come here? Holding off for that land for BART, it just doesn't seem right. You know, Bishop Ranch does just fine, and they're not near a BART station. They do have a shuttle that goes out to from the BART station to Bishop Ranch, and we could do that as well from Antioch BART station to this area.
Right. Okay. Now, and I have a terrible memory, so I had to type some stuff down as you were speaking. I don't know what prompted you to move out here in '95. In 2003, when I came out here, I was told that Brentwood would have the feel of an Alamo or even just a Walnut Creek, where there would not be a blow up of growth of any type. When I first moved out here, there was a horse farm on one corner. There was a pig farm on Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
There was the olive oil place on Empire.
Apricot.
Yeah, that's where the horse stable was. But that's why I moved out here. I had a house built for me, and
Yeah.
I loved that. But it was also to maintain that farm-like rural feel. Now, like I said, I'm considered new Brentwood. I think a lot of the old Brentwood people also thought that, and also thought when my house was built, yeah, well, you know, hey, you're gonna have these outsiders come in here and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, it's gonna ruin the look and feel. So as you're talking, see, when I hear economic growth, I think businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I may be wrong, but businesses are fine. But how many businesses have been built out in Alamo? And Alamo seems to survive. And, you know, I know that, well, I'm getting ready to get into a question regarding people moving out here and, you know, working at whatever structures they're going to be working at. But in the 17 years I've been here, it has become more city-like. Maybe a small city, but still city-like. So that kind of goes against that rural feel that, again, that was the biggest selling point for me, was, you know, not necessarily having a farm, but, you know, being able to see horses walk down the street. That's a beautiful thing. I see turkeys now, but, you know, but now.
Horses going through the drive-through at Taco Bell. I've seen that, yes.
Yes, oh, no, I had some turkeys walk down my street yesterday. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, so that's more of not a question, but as much as I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks like that. And now this goes back to the whole building up of homes. Now, one of the rationales was you know, if businesses come out here, then people from the city will come out here or from whatever areas. But COVID kind of proves that's not necessarily the case, because COVID has proven that a lot of people can work from home. And so if you can work from home,
Yeah.
then why would I work at a place, beautiful place, has a gym, free lunch, whole shooting match. But why would I want to work in a place like that when I could work from home? So if that is the logic, then why am I going to have a structure that may wind up being empty?
Yeah.
And now this also goes to, but this also goes to my pet peeve, and I'm not trying to be political. This is more of me being a homeowner.
Yeah.
There are plenty of empty spaces just on Lone Tree from Target to Winco. Okay, I think of Best Buy. I think of what used to be Hobby Lobby and Mervyn's, and I don't know what it is now. Yet we had a Chase Bank built right there in that little spot.
Yeah.
And the only reason I can think of that it was built in that little spot was because it wanted to look like a Chase. It didn't care that it needed to be new. It looked like a Chase. Therefore, we want to build a Chase. So how does that sync up with, or maybe this is my mistake, that we are no longer looking at a rural type of feel?
You know, when I moved here in 1995, there was 10,000 people and only 2 stoplights in town. The road out of here to Vasco Road went through a little tiny road, that 2-lane road that went where Los Vaqueros Reservoir currently is. It was a beautiful rural road to go back to 580. When you went to the post office, there were 2 people in line 2 days before Christmas, and they had fudge waiting for you so that you could have fudge while you waited for those 2 people to get done. So it was a small town atmosphere. I think we've still maintained that small town atmosphere. On the park commission, as I said, we wanted to make sure there was lots of open space, lots of parks, lots of trails, to continue to have that open feel. But I just found a newspaper article. It was a New York Times newspaper article. I was doing a search for something, and the chief planning officer at that time for the city of Brentwood had estimated that there'd be 103,000 population in Brentwood at build out. I think it was 103. It was over 100,000. And I'm pretty sure it was 103 that he said. 103,000. Where our build out right now is at 80, will be 81,000. It hasn't really changed since I got here. And the thing is that sometimes we move into a town with that expectation that it will continue to be, it stops growing when we get here. But just like we moved out here for affordable homes, other people are moving out here for affordable homes too. We had the choice of moving to Antioch. My husband was working in Oakland. We lived in South San Jose at the time. Mm-hmm. And so we came out here starting to look at houses because we could get a 45-year-old home that needed a new roof, new carpeting, linoleum. It needed everything new, and it would cost the same as a brand new house in here. We got a 2,500 square foot home with all the upgrades for $212,000 when we moved out here. Mm-hmm. And so we moved here for that small town feel. We moved here for that affordable home. And so did everybody else that moved out here. They moved here for that small town feel. And I think we've done well. I have concerns over some of the general plan amendments from previous councils where they changed light industrial over to residential. One of the houses I was going to build or was going to purchase, the first house we purchased, we signed the contract on, and then I read through the disclosures and it said that, you know, there's a railway line that goes through, And while nothing has come through, I called the city and they said nothing's come through in the last, I think, 12 years. And that was one beat train going between here and Tracy, but they can't guarantee that it won't become active tomorrow. There was also supposed to be a light industrial complex right behind that house. And so I wasn't sure, is that going to be a machine shop where I'm hearing all day long? And it was like, we got out of that and we moved over into the different house that was right there. Same development, but different house. They've since changed that development to cluster homes instead of light industrial. So we lost light industrial there. When the high school district decided to put in La Paloma High School over there by the police station, that was also light industrial. They had to change that over to residential because of the high school being there. It just didn't fit in with a light industrial complex. And we really have no say in where the school district decides to put a school.
Right.
So, and there's other places where we've lost light industrial or some type of commercial. We do have more stores that are coming in along Lone Tree. There is something, and I forget what it is. We do have something, they'll be taking over the Best Buy. That area where by Winco, that is just that framed thing that's been sitting there forever. We've got development that's coming in there to take over that area. And so we are starting to build out those areas. But those are all regional commercial. Those are going to be your service type of stores, your gas stations, which we have way too many gas stations. I'm actually going to be requesting that a feasibility study be required when any new type of business that is oversaturated or is presumed to be oversaturated in our town. It could be coffee shops, it could be gas stations, car washes, any of those types of things. And that will require them to have to do the feasibility study to determine, is there too many of that type of business before they can actually build or apply for the building permits.
Right.
So we are working. Those are all regional commercial in there. They're not, I mean, they might be small offices, your insurance company or your tax preparer, but they're not going to be places of larger employment that's in there. And that's what the PA1 is for, is to bring that in. We have 88% of our people commuting out of this area every day, 88%. They're leaving here to go to work, and it may be just Concord or Walnut Creek, but it could be San Francisco, it could be Santa Clara. I hear people going out to Stanford for work.
Mm-hmm.
That's a couple-hour drive.
Right.
And if we can get even satellite businesses to come here, and the consultant we're working with for the master plan for PA1 is working with a group that is analyzing how the shift has changed for PA1, what business will look like post-COVID. And that's going to change some of the way things are going to be built there.
Right.
We're finding it harder and harder, or there's not enough housings out there. Realtors are saying that they're being closed, 2 to 3 days after they get put on the market because there just isn't any inventory out there. If we can get the jobs at PA1, we can either employ people who live here in this area, and that might be Brentwood or Antioch or Discovery Bay, Byron, Bethel Island, any of those things, or get a reverse commute. Either way, it's going to help ease that traffic leaving out on Vasco Road, on J4, on Highway 4, leaving this area each day to go to work outside of this area and returning again in the evening. And that is one of our residents' major concerns, is the traffic. And that's what PA1 will help to ease the burden of those driving out of our area.
Okay. No, and again, I understand that. growth is probably the one thing. And again, I don't know what it's partisan one way or the other. I'm being selfish. And I'd like to return to that at some point, because I think COVID is a game changer. I think we are in the new normal. And I don't even think we've actually gotten from new normal to normal. But one of the questions that was asked, and it had to do with COVID, and it had to do with our kids, of course. So I want to read it because I don't want to mess it up. This one, though, or the one I'm going to ask, isn't for the kids necessarily, but it has to do with volunteerism. And I'm going to paraphrase what she wrote. I would like to see an application put in place to become a contact tracer. And, she even volunteered to head it up here in Brentwood, go to our hospitals, find out their needs and everything like that. It's my understanding we don't have anything like that. So there are a lot of questions out there. But in respect of volunteerism, we do have people that are willing to put their time and effort in trying to help our neighbors. So I don't know. You have that look like there's something on your mind. So hopefully you already know something. But how would we do that?
Well, in addressing a contact tracer, that's through the county. The county, Contra Costa County Health Services, they have been hiring contact tracers, and they have been getting them out in the field. Whether they have any more openings, I'm not sure, but if they just go to Contra Costa Health Services, do a search on the internet, they can find, there's a number they can call,
right,
and apply for that. Volunteerism, I gotta tell you, I have never seen a town that comes out in strength to volunteer. I mean, you look at the Brentwood Regional Community Chest.
Mm-hmm.
They provide food and gifts for families, needy families at Christmas time. A couple weeks worth of food, including a turkey dinner with all the fixings, and hundreds of volunteers come out to sort toys, to sort food, and who help to put everything in boxes so that it can be distributed the next day. Hundreds of volunteers.
No, and I'm sorry for interrupting. And yes, those are existing volunteer activities. Again, now this circles into the new normal. This young lady in particular wasn't trying to find a gig through the county. It was, why can't we, the citizens of Brentwood, do this? Now, I don't know if there's any, law prohibiting it, but if we have people that are willing to, either do it through phone, which I'm not quite sure what the logistics are, but I'm sure somebody watching does, but doing it that way, again, not doing it for the money, but, trying to find out how we really are in Brentwood, because the county is the county. And again, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm selfish. I really only care about Brentwood. Discovery Bay, do your own thing. Knightson, do your own thing. Antioch, do your own thing. I'm serious about that.
Yeah.
But that's what I meant about volunteerism. It sounds like that there are people that are ready to get on the phone now, but they need, at least some type of direction. And maybe you don't have the answer to that, but if you want to be mayor, I would think that you could do something.
This falls under HIPAA. I mean, so you've got to go through a health services. We as a city who would they report to? Because it is a medical issue. You're reporting on contact tracing, and everything that you get is confidential. Okay. And so reporting, and then you also, it ultimately gets back to the county because they oversee everything. They have finally started reporting specifics like how many deaths are in Brentwood specific, whether or not they are within a assisted living facility, if that death was from there or whether it's not in an assisted living facility. So they have been updating those types of information so that we have a better idea of what is actually happening in Brentwood versus before where they'd have all these deaths up there. And it's awful that we have these deaths, but we had no clue where they were coming from. I mean, was it, there's hundreds of them, and how many of those actually were in Brentwood? And if there was a case of COVID, was this somebody who tested positive with no symptoms? Is this somebody who tested positive is in the hospital? Those types of things were not being told to us of what was Brentwood specific. And so that has been changing. They continue to update their dashboards on the type of information that's out there. I agree, it's difficult to get any information from Contra Costa Health Services. I had sent a letter off to ask questions of Dr. Ferratano when he was doing a live Facebook feed. And one of it was the increase in suicides or suicide attempts due to the shelter in place that the hospital, John Muir Health, had seen a significant increase. I want to say 3 or 4 times the amount that they see in an entire year in a very short period of time because of the shelter in place. And what can we do to relieve that? Can we ease up on the shelter in place? Can you work directly with Brentwood to open us up earlier? Or can you help the East County, Far East County? We're surrounded from Bay Point to Bethel Island to Byron and Discovery Bay. We're surrounded on one side by a mountain range, and we're surrounded on 2 other sides by water, and then agriculture through the rest. We're an island out here. And so why can't you look at our numbers and allow us to open up earlier versus bring us in with West County and Central County where the numbers are much higher? And no response at all. I sent a letter off to the state health director, Dr. Sonia Angel, and said, can we work directly with you? The governor stated in a press conference that that the state will work directly with cities to reopen those cities. So I sent a letter off to her and said, okay, you said this. How do we go about this? No answer. So trying to move forward has been very difficult because we are lumped in with a much bigger county. And now the state has made it even more difficult by saying, okay, now you are at this purple level or you're at the red level. And while we are going to be moving into the red level, or maybe we just did, yeah, I'd have to go and check the dashboard today. I think it updated just when we got on the call. Yeah. But I do think that we need to be able to move forward safely. We have to do it safely.
Right.
And, that's why I worked and called for and approved to have restaurants have the ability to extend their outdoor seating across the sidewalks and into the parking strips in front of them or the parking lots next to us. You see restaurants all around town with their parking lots with tents put up there and seating outside. Right. That was something that I looked at not too long after we got started because it was important to be able to allow businesses to survive.
Right. And again, I understand when you're trying to reach out to the governor and yeah, we'll get back to you type of thing. And that's why my questions are more Brentwood centric because we are one of who knows 10, I don't know. I don't know the number of cities and towns. Mm-hmm. I'm going to presume there are a lot. So why would the governor or even someone in the county, oh yeah, well, Brentwood, you're so special, we're going to give you everything. So if we don't expect that, then that means we have to do it ourselves. And I think that question goes along the lines of, okay, we want to do it ourselves. We're not looking for, you know, any type of compensation. We're in this together. And it sounds like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, it sounds like you think it's a great idea, but you don't know how to move forward. And that's nothing wrong with that. But there must be some people that are listening to this that would know how. And again, this is more of a, it was a question, it was a legitimate question. I think it also covers the question about our kids in COVID and distance learning versus going into the classroom. I'm fortunate. My kids are adults. I would not know if my kids were, when we first moved here, 14 and 10. I have no idea how I would have survived this. But that's not about me. And this is just, like I said, something more to, you know, think about. Please elaborate if you wish. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse or paint you in a corner.
So I did bring it up in the beginning, that we should try to move forward again, try to have our city manager get in contact with the right people at the state to move forward. And I brought that up at a council meeting during a COVID update. And no, I didn't get any support from the rest of the council. I can't, without two other people agreeing with me, I can't push anything forward. So
officially, right? But a volunteer is a volunteer. You live here.
Yeah.
You can do the Karen Rarey, I don't know, COVID club, and put like minds together. And again, maybe you can't as a public official. I honestly don't know. I'm talking to Karen the citizen, not Karen the councilman.
Yeah, again, you've got your HIPAA that you got to be concerned with.
Sure.
Who are they reporting to? And where are those numbers going? Those numbers ultimately go back to the county.
Right.
And if they want to volunteer in Brentwood, then they pick up the phone and reach out to the county to get into that. And I posted that on my social media.
Mm-hmm.
That, the different types of jobs, a contact tracer, and there was, I think, 2 other types of jobs that they were hiring for. Mm-hmm. Some of them were volunteer positions, and some of them were paid positions. And I have posted those out. When I share to on Facebook. When I share to about 25 to 35 different groups. Mm-hmm. And so it does get out there. Whether or not any of those took advantage of that, I don't know. I can continue to, I can post it again, but I will have to check with the county to make sure they're doing it. So it's a medical thing, and we can't arbitrarily form a medical thing without all the guidelines that are involved with HIPAA.
No, fair enough. But and I don't know if you answered the question. The separation of Karen the politician, Karen the citizen of Brentwood. Are there any dividing lines where it's no, Karen, even though you live here, you can't be involved in this, or you can't be involved with that? Now, it may seem like it's a political thing. I don't know. I know it's nice when people go to marches and, and things like that, but that kind of grasp what you did in 95 is what I'm thinking of. The things you're doing in 95 or did in 95, I'm trying to understand why they can't be done in 2020. And maybe they can, and we just don't know.
When it comes to COVID,
oh no, I'm sorry. Let's take COVID out. I mean, there are more things that Brentwood needs than an answer to COVID. That's a genie that was released from the bottle, Pandora's box. I'm not asking you to close it. I'm just in general.
No, in general, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the grassroots effort, as I said, ours was all grassroots. And if a community comes together like that and wants something done, I mean, just recently, and it brings it back to COVID. There's somebody, collecting signatures to say, put our kids back into school. That's a grassroots effort. Another group of people collected signatures against the Bridal Gate project that would turn triple the amount of residential units for this development, and it would eliminate commercial to put in multifamily. And they got over 1,000 signatures on that. Although when it came to the council, it was canceled hours before the council meeting and postponed until 2021.
Okay.
So there are grassroots efforts out there. People are working to make this a better community, and they do bring things to us. I mean, look at mayoral. That is a great example of grassroots efforts coming together with people who said, we don't want this project. And they defeated it overwhelmingly at the ballot box.
Okay, I have, geez, my language skills. There are two things, and I don't know if they roll together or not. Okay, one has to do with the fire district, and I just use that as a broad term because again, I don't even know what that means other than one's an adjective, one's a noun. But the other is the growth. Well, no, let's go back to grants. Like I said, when I moved out here, I loved it for the farmland. And it makes sense if, a developer comes in with, a boatload of cash and, buys out the farmland, and it's bought out because the farmers, it's no longer sustainable. Are those grants that you were talking about with homes, can they or should they be applied to our agriculture? Because you're talking about building up light industrial, and you're talking about building up homes.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard, I didn't ask the question though just now, but agriculture, are there any initiatives or, are there any,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was, what verb I was
Absolutely. So whenever a developer comes in to build, they are taking out what used to be farmland, as you said. They have to pay an ag mitigation fee. Those fees go in to an ag enterprise mitigation fee or into an ag enterprise and conservation. And we have conserved thousands of acres with some of that money throughout the ag core. So the ag core is going to be your south of the city limits and east of the city limits. And it's tens of thousands of acres. Well, no, anyway.
That's outside of Brentwood. The south side of Highway 4 is outside of Brentwood, correct?
Yeah, so this is land that we conserve outside of the city limits. And that's to make sure that this land doesn't turn into more housing. Having a farmer who can't be sustainable, and so they try to get annexed into the city because a developer is giving them a boatload of cash, as you said, to do that. But anyway, we help to conserve land. We were working with the Brentwood Agricultural Land Trust, which has now been taken over by another group, but they also do conservation of ag land. In addition to that, we do have an ag enterprise working group. We meet with a group of farmers once a month. During this COVID, we haven't been able to meet, but and because during a couple of months there when the cherry season and the height of the U-pick is, they don't have time to leave their farms and come to us. But we provide grants to them for like harvest time. We've helped to update their website and optimize their social media presence so that they come up more often and higher up in the news feeds. We've provided funding for them to do uh, videos. You know, I don't know if you've seen the cherry picking video that comes out from harvest time, or the fall harvest activities that they have. Those are all things that are paid for from the grants that we provide. We're doing wayfinding signs, four-sided wayfinding signs out in the county land, so that it makes it easier for those coming into our town to see an arrow that points them to the direction. And in addition, that optimization of the website and social media. If a farmer closes, they can push with one button on their phone that they're closed, and it will update their website and all of their social media presence that they are now closed because they've run out of fruit. So all of those things were part of that. We've also funded the Contra Costa Wine Growers Association's feasibility study to see if they can get a Central Coast aviation and or a Brentwood aviation, Brentwood specific. We have invested in a pilot program to do a trolley, a wine trolley, which unfortunately got canceled because of COVID. But once we can, we'll start up and do that test pilot program for the trolley and hopefully be able to continue that on. So we work with the farmers. For over a year, I attended a working group meeting with the county and local farmers. And this is farmers from all over the county, including Tasajara and our area and out into the Martinez area. And so we met to try to look at what land use changes can take place. And what we determined is that the changes need to help to make those farmers sustainable, especially the smaller farmers, to allow them to have a bed and breakfast on their land, to allow them to have a farm to fork cafe on their land, a farm stay. Those types of things would make it so that they can become sustainable. And not every farmer is going to take advantage of that, but we also wanted to work so that there is an easier process for them to apply for different things on their land. Right now, they have to jump through so many hoops, and the cost becomes cost prohibitive for them. I talked to a farmer just this week. I went and talked with her, and she said that for a very small, very small commercial kitchen in her farm, $150,000 to do a very small commercial kitchen because of all the hoops that she has to jump through in order to get that. So it becomes cost prohibitive. Now, what we worked on did go to the supervisors, the board of supervisors. They did accept the report and they sent it off for the next steps, and then COVID hit. So we haven't heard anything back on that. But once those changes take place, it will help to spur agritourism in this area and make it so that we are a destination place for agritourism.
Right, but there's agritourism and there's agriculture, and maybe I don't know the difference. Now, when I moved out here, I know that there were far more agricultural land. Actually, there was farmland. I don't see any more farmland. I believe there are only 3 true agricultural sites, both sides of Highway 4 and over on Sellers. Now, my son actually bought a house in that new development. He can see the crops that are over there. I am certain that's going to be destroyed and there's going to be housing put there or light industrial or whatever. Now, maybe that is already a done deal and no one can do anything about it. But let's say it's not. But let's say that farmland, that agricultural land, the person who owns it can't sustain it. Now, I'm not talking about agritourism. I'm just talking about the guy who wants to grow corn. And, you know, maybe it's a water problem. Maybe it's, again, throwing out a gang of money. It's, you know, there are people who've had land here for generations. But if they get the perception that the city doesn't care, or if the city is willing to go along with, yeah, we'll take your land and we'll build up houses, and you know, we're no longer a farming community, and maybe that's our destiny, is to no longer be a farming community. Yeah, and again, now you know, that's just Danny Gorman's comments. This now rolls into, I won't talk about the light industrial because we've already killed that pony. But the number of 110,000, I'm curious as to why, one, we even have that number, and why isn't it 80,000? Honestly, when I moved in, there was 55,000. And I was told it was never going to go above 68. We're now at 80, and you're looking at 110. And honestly, that is no longer old Brentwood. And I think that people who lived here moved out here. You know,
that over 100 number that you're mentioning was in a newspaper article in 1993.
Okay.
So that was what, and it was a New York Times article about this booming farm town that was the fastest growing city in the state of California. And that was the number that was thrown out there at that time. I don't remember it being, you know, I don't remember it ever being at 55. But, you know, 68 does sound kind of familiar to me. When I came on the city council in 2016, it was 81,000. So that's the number we need to stick with. You know, it's not, and we're at 66,000. So we're getting close to that number, probably a build out in the next 10 to 15 years. Can we place a moratorium on building? That's something that right now, the city attorney is looking into placing a moratorium on the ability to do oil wells drilling within the city limits. And on the surface, it looks like we could do it for a short period of time, but we would have to change the ordinances overall to prevent that. And I believe that also follows the same thing for housing development, that we could do it for a short period of time. We haven't had a council meeting since then, so I haven't been able to ask him for that information. Well, that's not true. We had a special council meeting, but since at that time they don't ask for future agenda items, I wasn't able to ask about that.
Okay.
So yeah, it is something that, you know, we could look at. The other thing, as I said, the feasibility of oversaturation, having the feasibility studies for oversaturation of different types of businesses. Are we just cannibalizing other businesses in our town by allowing more of the same types of businesses to come into our town? So that's why I'm going to request a feasibility study be required when any new business of specific natures comes in.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And I really do appreciate your time. I know we never talked about how much time we're going to spend because, one, like I said, I'm not a journalist. So the two people talking and everyone else is listening in on it, basically. Oh, it's Coffee with Karen. I have water. You have water.
I have water too.
And I'm glad I have water here. I didn't even realize I did. So my last question is, it's going to be three-part. So, because
okay,
I stuck myself with the last question, so I got to milk it for all it is. One, if you were, I won't say if, I'll say when. I'll say that to all the candidates. One of you got to be, so I'm going to be right with one of you. So when you become mayor, what will be your top? I'm stuck on the number 5, so that's my shtick, 5. So what will be your top 5? And let's presume it's clear skies. So let's say there's nothing that will stop you from doing it. What would be your top 5 goals? Not the
sky's the limit. Improving the fire protection district, and getting the amount of stations on board that we need to provide the adequate services, above and beyond services, not just adequate services for our community. That would be a number one priority. Number two is making our community safer through the police department. We were supposed to bring on a fifth beat, and part of that also included having two quality of life officers who help with the homeless problem, and help for things within the community that need resolution, that takes more time than what an officer who's on a beat can do. We've had 4 officers or 4 beats per shift for the last 15 years. Back when the population was about 40,000, we're now at 66, so we have the same amount of officers patrolling a much larger area. So that's a priority. Economic development, helping our resident or our small businesses recover. And I've already started by asking for either grants to help them in their need, helping them with workshops to help them grow, or some one-on-one counseling. And that should be coming back to us at our next city council meeting to determine whether or not the rest of the council feels that we need to spend staff time and money on it. So that's coming back in October. And pushing through on our economic development. We need to be able to work with our neighboring cities to market this area as an opportunity zone. We already have a memorandum of understanding with them through the Northern Waterfront Economic Development Initiative to do just that, but it's stalled. So we need to get back on board and work with our neighboring cities to market this area together and drive businesses out here, because then they look at us as a much bigger area and the opportunities are there. We also need to work with helping the homelessness in this city. There are tents popping up all over the place. I got a report that there was behind Rite Aid by the railroad tracks, that there were tents being popped up over there. Over there off of O'Hara, there's, underneath the bridge, there's, homeless there. And we need to look at that because, as COVID is lifted, as the foreclosure and the evictions are reinstated to be able to be done, we may be seeing more and more families who are losing their homes because they couldn't afford to pay the rent. And while they're staying in there now, those numbers just keep building every month, and so, they're in a very difficult situation to be able to not be able to pay those things. Sure. And so we're going to be seeing more homeless. We may be seeing families living in cars, and we need to work with the county to help to make a difference and find solutions.
Okay. Now, the second part of that 3-part question, because it seems like this is a paradox. Homelessness. We're building new homes, but we are, for terrible reasons, gaining homes. So how do you jive those two? If let's say only 5%, and again, I know this is a terrible fact, and I'm hoping I'm highballing this number, but let's say 5% of the homes, the people living in these homes, become homeless or move out because they can't afford to live here anymore. Oh, let's say that number is 2,000. I'll say 1,000, just 1,000 homes. But we're building 20,000 homes. So how do you jive that if we're trying to keep our residents from living on the streets or from moving out? How do we jive that with bringing in new homes with the thought of bringing out people when we have our own people losing homes?
Well, the 20,000 homes is a very high number considering we already have, we have a little less than 20,000 right now in our city.
Okay, no, let's make it 5,000.
So 20,000 is
Okay.
we probably build out, we are probably about 6,500 more homes, and 45 of those are multifamily units.
Okay. Let's balance it out. I threw out a high number. So let's say 1,000 poor residents lose their homes while you're building 1,000 new homes. So that's a net positive of 2,000 dwellings, but one directly impacts the citizens of today, where the other, directly impacts new money coming in. So how does that jive?
So when I got on the council, one of the things that I really worked towards was affordable homes.
Mhm.
And that I pushed to have a housing subcommittee done because we needed to determine, well, at that time, the city was only collecting 2% in lieu fees for all new homes. So let's say they had 100 homes built, 2% of those homes would have to be affordable homes, and the developer would either have to build 2 homes in their development that were affordable. They're inclusionary homes. They couldn't be in the same location in that development. And they would be for affordable. Let's say you have a family of 4 making between, this is low income, making between 66,000 and I think it's 91,000. If you're a family of 4, you are considered low income, making between 66 and 91,000. You would qualify for a low income home. It's not Section 8.
Mhm.
You could purchase this home for, I think it's like $250,000. You'd be able to purchase that home. And I remember when we purchased our home on our first home here, that was $212,000. We were paying tax and assessments at and the principal on that and interest was $1,500 a month, and that was at a 5.75% interest rate. And we know those interest rates are down around 2%. So let's say that they were only paying $1,500. That would help families be able to purchase a home with a 40-year grant restricted deed on it. There's also rental units that we'd be able to add on to that. So we're at 2%. I said we need to increase that. They had decreased it in 2012 because of the recession.
Mhm.
Increased it from 10% down to 2%. And I said it's time to bring those numbers back up. So once we did the study, we were able to increase 6% this year, and next year we go to 10%. So any of those new developers who come in, anything over 25 homes in their subdivision, they would have to provide this year 6% of those homes would have to be affordable housing, or next year it would have to be 10% of those homes would have to be affordable housing. And I don't want them to give us in lieu fees. We have about $4 million in lieu fees that we've collected to try to partner with a affordable housing nonprofit to build like apartment complexes or such. And so I have heard that we are currently working with somebody, but I don't know where in the process that is to build that complex with that $4 million. But I want them to be homes that they can move into. In an apartment complex, a market rate apartment complex, I want there to be affordable units within that apartment complex to be able to rent. And that's what will help some of these people, not all of them. But then also, as I said, working with the county. Next week on the 29th, the police chief at 5 o'clock will have a virtual town hall meeting regarding the unsheltered or homelessness. And so what we can do, what we can't do, and what types of services are available. And I think even getting out there and walking with our core team is a coordinated outreach referral engagement. I believe that's what the acronym stands for, but as a county group that goes out there and provides services to the homeless, helps to get them into programs or into a shelter and help them so they ultimately become, be able to live in a home again. And being able to walk out there with them, help to identify the ones who might need mental health. And we do work with a county agency that also comes out to provide mental health support to those who need it. And so that's going to be very vital as we see people losing their homes, living in their cars, and being able to help them recover and get back into a home.
Okay. I don't know if you answered the question, but I'm going to rephrase. Okay. Again, I'll even say, let's say 5 homes. You have 5 people who get ready to get booted. And I apologize to you 5, okay, because I'm sure you're watching. But there's empathy, there's sympathy, but it still honestly doesn't jive with 5 new homes. Now, again, I'm not trying to paint you in a corner. This is more, we know that there are people who are homeless right now. We also know that there are people who will soon be homeless. And so I'm addressing those who are soon to be homeless. See, I've been there. I've been 1 month away from foreclosure. So I know what it's like. Unlike the recession of the market, whatever you want to call it, the Great Recession of 2000.
I was a single parent raising a toddler, and I also lived paycheck to paycheck, and at times had an inability to pay my PG&E. So
Right.
I've been there.
No, and that's great. So then you know the embarrassment, you're doing everything you can. So it's great that you know that, because I'm asking on behalf of those people who are now in the boat I was in the boat you were in. And I don't know, we both know that, yes, there is the moratorium on rentals. I'm not sure if it's the same for mortgages, because
yeah, if it's an FHA loan, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, those have a moratorium on them.
Okay, so then what is it that the city can do? I mean, even something I'm going to say as simple as, but the consideration of maybe dipping into the slush fund to keep people in their homes instead of dealing with them after the fact, after they're living in their cars or after they're moving out of the area. And this is the home they built or had built, or homes that they've had for generations. But now, through necessarily no fault of their own, they're in this predicament. How can the city do something like that? Because I think you guys did it with restaurants, not saving them, but giving them some type of financial break so that they wouldn't leave. Now, I may be wrong in that.
Yeah,
What
no,
can we do for our citizens?
we provided $5,000 grants through our economic development. There's funding that comes in through that. Plus, there was CARES Act funding that comes in, and so the last part of our funding that we did for restaurants throughout town that came from CARES Act. So that was federal funds that came in to help businesses so that was available. There's also funding that's available through the Contra Costa Continuum of Care for people who are on the verge of losing their homes. They can get help through them for funding.
Do you have that information?
I do have that information,
Okay,
not right here, but
okay. If you can send it to me, because my plan is, after this, I'm literally going to throw the whole thing up on YouTube so that they get the unfiltered version. Then what I'll do is parse out, for people who are probably like this right now, or who are grinding their teeth because they're waiting for a particular answer to a particular question. I'll chop that up. And during that chopping process, I'll put all the information you send, because this is valuable information.
Yeah.
And again, now, I thank you for being the guinea pig. You are the first. And hopefully I was nonpartisan. Hopefully I was nice. My wife says I got to work on my nice skills. So hopefully I was nice. I applaud you for the work you've done.
Thank you.
And I applaud when you, look, people, I'm going to say that to every candidate because I know I got to be right with one of them. So I applaud you when you become mayor. I wish you the best of luck, and I thank you dearly on behalf of me and the 2 or 3 other Brentwood people who will watch this.
I think you'll get more than that.
I'm sure I will, because I had questions. I got all kinds of little.
I already had somebody when I told them I'd be interviewing. I'm going to be doing another podcast, and they go, "Oh, is it that Danny?" And they couldn't remember your last name, but they said that you did a little preview thing on it, and that it was hilarious. That they loved the way that you presented it. And I haven't gone into it to watch it, but I have wanted to go back in there and watch what you actually said.
Oh yeah, no, because I'm just a regular guy, and I'm speaking on behalf of regular people who, like I said, when I first started this thing, even when I put it out there, I honestly, and I'm sure a lot of Brentwood people are the same way, know little to nothing about the people I hope I get to talk to. And now I know a great deal more. And the Brentwood folks that are watching this, now they'll know a great deal more. And again, I appreciate your time. I could talk all day long, but I'm sure we have a couple of people who fell asleep 15, 20 minutes ago. So.
Oh yes, we have been on for a while, haven't we?
Yes, and I know you're very busy, so I appreciate the time. Best of luck to you. And
thank you.
If I can be of any service to pass information along, please feel free to hit me up. You have my personal information, and I will send you the link, and I'll post it on Nextdoor so that you can take a look and hopefully enjoy it.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.